chapter 21 of the Gospel of John. Really interesting because all of the other Gospels seem to end with a Great Commission, and none of the others record this event. And yet Jesus clearly told the ladies to tell the disciples to go on to Galilee, that he would meet them there. And that's exactly what's happening here in chapter 21. But there's three questions I want you to look at with me. First one is, why were there only 7 there instead of the 11? Why 7 instead of all 11? Second, was this a deliberate part on Jesus to have them flash back to Luke chapter 5, verses 1 through 11, particularly verse 10, when Jesus said to let down your nets again, even though they'd fished all night, and then ended up with the statement, I'll make you fishers of men. Was this deliberate? Was this whole thing to remind them? The third question, was it to remind them that they have to be obedient and to do things Jesus' way? Just as we should. Be obedient and do it Jesus' way. Well, those are 3 questions that I hope you're going to look at with me today as we read from John chapter 21, verses 1 through 6. John chapter 21, verses 1 through 6. Let's read it together. After these things, Jesus manifested himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias, and he manifested himself in this way. Simon Peter and Thomas called Didymus, and Nathanael of Cana of Galilee, and the sons of Zebedee, that's James and John, and 2 others of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, I am going fishing. And they said to him, we will also come with you. And they went out and got into the boat, and that night they caught nothing. But when the day was now breaking, Jesus stood on the beach. Yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. So Jesus said to them, children, you do not have any fish, do you? They answered him, no. And he said to them, cast a net on the other side of the boat, and you will find a catch. So they cast, and then they were not able to haul it in because all of the great number of fish. Now remember, this may be a flashback to Luke 5 and verse 10 in particular. And so also were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, who were partners, and Simon. And Jesus said to Simon, do not fear, from now on you'll be catching men. Well, you remember we just read in chapter 20 that not all of the events of Jesus' life here on earth was recorded, and that there are many things that were not written down. So we don't have any idea why it was only 7 of the apostles and not 11. We just don't know. There's no real explanation. The second thing is that we do think, or at least I think, that this was a deliberate flashback. As a matter of fact, the more I have studied this passage of Scripture, the more convinced I've become that this is typology. That this was not only going to be a flashback to their purpose in life through Jesus, their mission in life through Jesus, that is to catch men and to be evangelists, but I believe that it was also pointing out to the end times. That's interesting, isn't it? That he would take and have them go through this experience, not only to remind them of their mission, but to also give them a glimpse of what was going to happen in the future, in the end times. We'll be looking at that on Monday. And so when we look at this, we know that we have to remember to be obedient to Christ. Remember our mission. We were called for a purpose. We were given spiritual gifts for a purpose. We're to use those spiritual gifts until we draw our last breath. And we need to remember that we're on mission for Christ. The second thing is we need to remember that we have to do it Jesus' way. We need to let down our nets on the right side of the boat where he wants them. And we need to be sure that we are faithful, even in these difficult and trying times. when finances, when jobs, when health, when everything else seems to be in question, we need to be faithful, be on mission for Christ. I hope that you're going to be in your church via internet. I hope that you'll watch the videos that your church is providing. And if your church can't provide them, there are so many good churches that are broadcasting. We know that the two that we attend are both broadcasting, not only Sunday school, but also a worship service, so that we can celebrate Easter together. So if you don't have a church that broadcasts them, let me suggest to you First Baptist Church of Landrum, and that's in Landrum, South Carolina, and also Five Forks Baptist Church in Simpsonville, South Carolina. Fine churches. There are many others that are fine churches that will be broadcasting their services well live, Facebook and via their websites. So check out a church if your church can't do it, but be faithful to yours. One other thing I want to remind you of, the church continues to pay water bills and electric bills. They continue to pay staff salaries. Be faithful in your giving if you possibly can. I think God will bless it when you're faithful in your giving. So please remember your church. No matter how tight finances seem to be, remember that a tenth belongs to God. But also, your church has ministered to you and to your family over the years. It's time for you to give back. And so I hope that you'll be faithful in your giving. Be in church on Sunday via internet or telecom, and be sure to be faithful to be on mission for Christ. That's my thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.